to News 24. We are coming to you live from the News 24 studio in Cape Town, where we have just received the news that the National Prosecuting Authority will be bringing corruption charges against former President Jacob Zuma. Joining me in studio today is News 24 editor Arjun Besson. Arjun, this has been a long time coming and you've been following the story from the beginning. How does it feel to hear this announcement today?
Yeah, I've got a sense of relief in a way that Zuma will finally see the inside of a courtroom as he's asked to do. But I also have a sense of sadness, it's been 10 years, we could have been spared the entire Jacob Zuma, disastrous Jacob Zuma regime of the past 10 years. Had Mokotedi Mshi made the right decision 10 years ago. That decision, of course, is now being corrected by Shaun Abrahams. And we can talk about why Abrahams made this decision a bit later. But, this is the correct decision. Numerous courts have said that the trial court must decide these issues against Zuma. He will definitely bring them up again. He will bring up all these conspiracies against him, the fact that he thinks he can't receive a fair trial, but let the trial court deal with that. And that is what Shaun Abrahams has now said, and the charges are back.
Of course, him saying there that in the interest of transparency, in the interest of justice, and in the interest of the NPA, a trial court is the best place for this decision to be made. And that he thinks that there are reasonable prospects for this case to be won.
To succeed, yes.
What has changed? We know that the spy tapes may now be included, but is that the only reason that this decision was made?
Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The charges are the same as they were against Schabir Shaik, as there were numerous forms of the indictments that's been served against Zuma over the years. He still faces two counts of corruption. Those two charges form the core basis of the charge sheet. It's 18 charges in the end, but those two counts of corruption, the one, the bribe paid by Thales, the French arms company of 500,000 rand, and secondly, the bribes paid by Schabir Shaik to Jacob Zuma. We can say bribes because the court had already found they were bribes in the Shaik trial. Those were always the case against Zuma, and those will be the charges he will face again. All that has changed is the politics in the country. And this is quite also a sad day to see how literally the political changes in the ANC leadership makes it possible for the prosecuting authority to do their work. Again, another big indictment against an institution of democracy. This is the same Shaun Abrahams who prosecuted Pravin Gordhan at the end of 2016 on absolutely trumped up charges. But at the time, it was politically expedient to prosecute Pravin Gordhan. Today, Jacob Zuma is no longer president of the country. He no longer has the power he had in the ANC, so it's easier to prosecute him. And this is the real big issue. Jacob Zuma will come and go, but if we don't restore the independence of the prosecuting authority, the fact that they can prosecute without fear or favor any person, irrespective of who they are, we won't fix this country.
Well, let's come back to that in a moment, but let's just clear up, there's a little bit of confusion about the number of the charges. Just explain that to us.
So what we heard Shaun Abrahams saying today is that they received representations on 16 of the 18 charges. So at this stage, it is not 100% clear whether it's 16 or 18 charges that Zuma will face. That doesn't matter so much because we know the charges that form the bedrock, as I explained, of the charge sheet are these two corruption charges of receiving money. That one is the general corruption charge, where Schabir Shaik literally funded his lifestyle over years, paid his children's school fees, paid for his car's repair, paid for his rental of his flat, even paid for a car valet at some stage of 200 rand. The former Scorpions put that all onto a timeline and showed how at the same time, Zuma as MEC for Economic Development in KwaZulu-Natal way back, then performed favors for Schabir Shaik and his company. So he introduced him to foreign businessmen who wanted to invest in South Africa. He said, take Schabir Shaik as your partner. That was the quid pro quo that Zuma returned to Shaik for funding his lifestyle. So that is the first corruption charge, the so-called general corruption charge. The second one specifically refers to a bribe of 500,000 rand that Zuma supposedly received from Tint, the arms deal company. Now again, Schabir Shaik was the BE partner of Tint, or Thales as they are known in France, in the arms deal. This is where the arms deal comes in. And at the time, apparently Shaik agreed that Zuma would then protect Tint from an arms deal investigation, and he would also further the interest in South Africa. There was the so-called French fax, which you may remember, where Zuma in coded form, where he apparently had to say, the Eiffel Tower looks beautiful at night, confirmed the bribe. So those are two bedrocks of the charge. It's the general corruption, Shabir Sheikh paying for his lifestyle, and the specific bribe from the French arms company. The rest are fraud charges about his tax returns. There's money laundering charge, and then also racketeering that stitches all of this together.
And then, of course, you get, in the original case, you got to the 783 counts.
So the 783, just to again explain that, it's 783 transactions, payments from Shabir Sheikh to Zuma. That's where the 783 came in. A lot of people confused it over the years, said there were 783 charges. That was never the case. It was always 18 charges.
Right. Of course, the state's case was already almost done and built by the time they decided not to prosecute. But 783 counts, that's a lot of evidence to go through, a lot of witnesses. This will take quite some time for this trial to be concluded.
So if I remember well, I led in with the Shabir Sheikh case, the trial started in October 2004 and it ended in June 2015. So what is that, about 8, 9, 10 months for the trial. So I guess this one will take longer because we can be assured that Jacob Zuma, through his lawyer Michael Hulley and his advocate J. Kemp, will fight these charges. He will again come to the trial court and say, to the judge, I cannot be tried fairly. The NPA's hands are dirty. They come with dirty hands because of years of media leaks. We heard from Sean Abrams today that one of the reasons Zuma gave not to be prosecuted was the media leaks. He said the NPA has made irrational decisions about him for years. He blames the NPA for the delay in his trial, not his own Stalingrad strategy. So he will make a bit of a song and dance about this. It will then depend on the court trial judge. How much he's going to tolerate that and whether he's going to start with the charges as soon as possible.
Absolutely, and then of course we can still see appeal. So it's still a long way to Tipperary, as they say, but at least a step in the right direction.
I think what will happen now is that Sean Abrams said the Director of Public Prosecutions for KwaZulu-Natal, which is Moipone Noko, Advocate Noko, will have to then re-enroll this matter. We now need to look carefully at who's going to run this case, of course, because we know Billy Downer was only one of the prosecutors in that team that reviewed the charges, whereas he was the main prosecutor in the Sheikh trial. So it's going to be key to see if he indeed leads the trial in the end.
Let's talk again quickly about the NPA and Sean Abrams himself, a man that's job is on the line at the moment. How far does this decision by him go to restore the integrity of the NPA?
Look, I think he wants this decision to be his legacy. He wants people to remember him as the guy who charged Jacob Zuma. That's not true. That won't happen. We will remember him as the person who further politicized the NPA, who did not have the guts to stand up against Jacob Zuma when it mattered, and who undermined the rule of law during his tenure at the NPA, specifically with the SARS cases that dragged people like Ivan Pillay and Pravin Gordhan to court. So I think Sean Abrams was completely opportunistic of making this decision himself. He could have waited a few more days or weeks for the Constitutional Court to give judgment on whether he is the right person to lead that organization. He chose not to. I personally believe for personal reasons. That doesn't mean the reasoning or the argument is legally unsound, and I don't think that there's a strong case to be made that because Abrams made this decision, the charges cannot continue. Zuma may try to make that argument, but Zuma is also the same person who appointed Abrams, so he's not going to get far with that. I can't see Abrams staying on in this position. I think Cyril Ramaphosa has already got new candidates in mind, which he will put into that institution. But as we said previously, it's so important for the new National Director of Public Prosecutions to completely remove this idea that if you're politically powerful, you cannot be prosecuted.
Well, at the end of the day, a great vindication for those prosecutors like Billy Downer, who from the beginning said that here's a case that can be successful to prosecute former President Jacob Zuma. So a vindication for those people, but also a great sigh of relief for all South Africans who've been waiting to see this day.
Yes, I think we all have this. There's a kind of we all wanted Zuma to receive his comeuppance, to at least come to court and to present his defense. It's not about seeing Zuma in prison. That's not what it's about. It's about hearing his defense against those very real charges that already led to the conviction of his former financial advisor Shabir Sheikh. So he's now got an opportunity to put his case. But if we could turn back time 10 years ago, same case, same trials, and people like Billy Downer, supported by Wim Trengove, who was advising the NPA at the time, said, you must prosecute him, let the trial judge decide. And I think people like Mokotedi Mshe and even Willie Hofmeyer, who supported that decision, will be judged harshly by history.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Adrian. For all the reaction and analysis on this breaking news story, please stay up to date on News 24.